Are you thinking of adding a network attached storage device to your home network? Well, in this video, I'll be discussing 5 pros and cons of having a NAS as a home user. So the first benefit of having a NAS unit is clearly the increased amount of storage capacity you are going to have. Certainly if you're maybe you've got a PC and you've got just 1 or 2 drives in that PC. Maybe you're using an external drive at the moment, and you're running out of space on that. If you're a multi-PC household, maybe you've got some laptops and you've got desktops and mobile phones, tablets and stuff like that. All of these devices can now store the photos, your videos, your music files, everything onto this NAS device. Obviously, there's a bit of a caveat behind that. It very much depends upon the size and the number of disks that you put in the NAS device. But generally, these things are expandable, from 2 to kind of like 4 drives in size, and some of them even go beyond that as well. So drives nowadays are fairly cheap, so it is a good cheap source of a large storage capacity. So that's probably the first benefit, I would say, of having a NAS unit. Now the next benefit has to be about your data protection. Having your files in a central place. Depending upon how you've got your NAS set up, you can build in that redundancy there. Obviously, a NAS is not an overall backup solution, but it gives you an extra level of protection over maybe that external hard drive that you're using, or just the drive that's in your computer. If you've got your mobile phone, you've got a lot of precious photos on that phone. If you lose that phone, maybe somebody steals that phone, you damage the phone, water damage or whatever, unless you've got some kind of cloud backup, you're unlikely to be able to recover those files. So having stuff like that going onto your NAS unit gives you that peace of mind. Obviously, general rule of thumb is to back up from the NAS onto something else to give you an extra level of protection. But just even having your files on another central location will be far better than probably what you've got at the moment. So benefit number 3 has to be file sharing. Being able to share your documents, your music, and kind of like your photos and things like that. Obviously within your immediate household, it's such an easy process to allow that. NAS units generally have some kind of mobile app that goes with them, but even then, you can simply connect from your mobile phone onto your NAS device. Relatively easy to go and view the content there. You can go beyond that, if you wanted to, if you're brave enough, and expose your NAS outside of your home, and maybe kind of like your wider family can have a look at those photos and view some of the content that you've got on your NAS unit. But I think the ability to share that that content that you've got, that you've collated collectively as a family, as a household, is just a really really beneficial thing to be able to do, rather than just kind of passing that hard drive around, plugging that into computers and stuff like that, just to be able to view in isolation. So the 4th benefit is remote access. Now, a bit of a caveat behind this one. You've got to be really careful if you're going to set up remote access. There's some really nasty things out there that can compromise your NAS unit if you incorrectly set up NAS devices for remote access. So make sure you read up the best ways to basically harden those devices, so that if somebody does manage to compromise your NAS unit, they're not going to get full control of that. But ultimately, the benefit behind this, maybe you're on holiday, you want to get access to your media files, your music or your videos or something like that, you would be able to do that. Maybe you're traveling on business and you've got some files that you need to get access to. Again, you would be able to do that relatively easy. So I think it done properly, that can be a really good benefit, to be able to get access to content whilst you are not immediately where the NAS is and where you're connected to. And the fifth benefit, well, it has to be the media streaming. So obviously, depending upon which NAS you buy or you set up, they make great media players, media servers. So a lot of them, I have a Synology DS920 Plus, and it makes a great Plex media server. The software is free to download and install on the server, on the NAS, and it just works flawlessly. There's no kind of like stuttering or things like that. It works great on the network, and quite happily streams to multiple devices around my home. So you can do that with your music. If you wanted to set something up a little bit more, so you can play music around your house and things like that. There's various things that you can do there as well. But these things, obviously you can do these with other devices. It is just a lot more complicated to go and do that. And NAS generally will have the software out the box to enable you to get going with media streaming relatively easy. So what are the disadvantages of a NAS unit for the home? Well, I think probably the first one is probably cost. As I say, I have a Synology DS920 Plus, not a cheap device, good few £100 for that. Then you've got to add in the price of the discs, the drives themselves. Again, it's a good few £100 there that you've got there. So, not a cheap solution by any means. You could probably go and get cloud storage an awful lot cheaper again, but it's just somebody else's computer, right? So, obviously, that's probably, middle ground, I would say, on pricing. You can get cheaper units, you can get 2-bay NAS units, you can get NAS units from other brands, such as things like TerraMaster and QNAP. But they're all roughly the same kind of price, and obviously the drives themselves are all the same price anyway, so you're pretty much stuck with that there. You could, if you've got an old computer lying around the house, you could go and set something up yourself. I've done this myself previously, and I'll tell you why in a second, why I went to use a Synology device. But you have things like Unraid, Open Media Vault. You had what was called FreeNAS, which is TrueNAS now. So some of those are free software. Unraid, you can pay for that if you want more functionality. But ultimately, if you've got that old hardware lying around, then you could use that. You might have to buy some hard drives to go into it. I think the thing for me, I tried Unraid, and it was great. I had no problems with it. But the more I started looking into Synology and its DiskStation software, the more I just liked the look and the kind of like the flexibility and the ease of use of it. And I think that's the main thing. If you've not used a NAS before, you just want to plug something in, switch it on, and away it goes. Then I would go for a ready packaged NAS unit, as it were. Mine just sits there in the corner. Other than software update, I don't have to do anything else to it. Looking after some of the other solutions, a homegrown device, as it were, there's just a little bit more tinkering involved on that. So ultimately, it's your decision. It's worth trying these things out. If you haven't got the spare computer lying around, then I would opt for the ready built system every time. So the second disadvantage of a NAS is probably the setup. So as I just mentioned, with something like a Synology, it can be fairly straightforward to set up. It can get more complex. There's a lot of complex features within the underlying operating system. After all, it is built upon a Linux-based operating system. The same with the other NAS solutions. They are all based upon some kind of operating system. So ultimately they have the same as it were, pros and cons of those operating systems. So, if you want to, open up your NAS externally, or you want to do something more advanced on your NAS, then you're going to start getting into more complex functionality, and a need to understand that area of the configuration more. So if you are just a bog standard home user, absolutely, you can just use these, plug them in and get going. But if you want to do more advanced stuff, if you want to do that remote access, then be prepared to have to go and watch some YouTube videos or something like that, or trawl through the internet to go and find the information. It's not massively difficult, but if it's not something that you've done before, it can be a little bit challenging. So that's probably one of the other disadvantages of having that kind of device on your home network. Now, disadvantage number 3, well, that has to be, for me, upgradability. And this is more to do with the out of the box, the Synologies, the QNAPs, TerraMaster, all those kinds of things, really. So, if you're building your own, you're probably not going to really encounter this. But these ready-made solutions, they are just small computers. Generally, other than the RAM and the hard drives, there's very little, if nothing else, that you can actually go and upgrade on these devices. So when you're buying one, make sure it has the features and functionality that you actually need from a NAS unit. So most NAS boxes, NAS devices only have a gigabit Ethernet port. If you're looking for something faster than that, look to see what is available on the market. It's probably going to cost a bit more than kind of like the stuff that is generally available. You're almost certainly not going to be able to upgrade the CPU on them. Most of these things, they are really tiny little motherboards inside the NAS, and everything is pretty much hard soldered to the board. So that's probably my third disadvantage, really, is the upgradability of a ready-made NAS is pretty much 0 to none. And with regards to the RAM, most of them have a limit as to how much you can put in as well. So the DS920 Plus, Synology say no more than 8 gigabytes of RAM in it. I know some people on Reddit and things like that, have had up to kind of like 20 gigabytes, maybe a little bit more. So, but that is, you've got to use specific RAM to be able to achieve that. So that is my third disadvantage of a NAS. So my fourth disadvantage is just in terms of compatibility. So, in general, this is a bit of an odd one, this one. I think in general, most people will have no issues with compatibility. Maybe if you're doing something yourself, you're going to have to kind of like mess around a little bit more to get that overall compatibility for all the devices. If you're buying an out-the-box solution, maybe they haven't got an app for your device, which makes it more difficult to access the content on the NAS. If your computers are connecting to it, maybe a Mac or just a Windows PC, in general, they should have no problems whatsoever connecting to the NAS. So think more in terms of your mobile devices, really. But my Synology, for example, I use Android mobile and tablets, and there's quite a wide range of apps available for multiple different aspects of functionality on that NAS unit. So just something to be aware of. Do a little bit of research before you ultimately buy that NAS if you're going for a ready-made solution. So my fifth disadvantage of a NAS will probably be the security aspect of it. I've mentioned this a couple of times throughout the video, but if you've just got a PC, laptop, desktop, or whatever in your house at the moment, you may well have antivirus software on it. It's probably just connected to your internet modem, something like that. You've probably got limited attack vectors on that device, really, because it's probably well protected unless you go and download something that can't be detected by your antivirus. I think the thing with a NAS, certainly when you open it up to the internet, when you use the more advanced features of it, is that it massively increases the potential for an attack vector on it. So QNAP and Synology have both been susceptible to attacks on their devices. I think probably more so QNAP have been in the news about that. I think Synology have been in some recently for their systems, but ultimately these are targets. These are entry points onto your your storage of precious information, your photos, your documents. You could have all kinds of stuff on there, but also in some ways, if you've got things like security camera footage going on there, people could view that. People could get onto your network as well via that. So you've really got to, this isn't just a desktop computer or something like that you can just think, okay, I'll stick that in the corner. Yes, if you just take it out the box, there are some basic things to do to go and harden it up, and you can watch the video up above. I've done on that on the channel, how to kind of secure your NAS. But ultimately, if you start using more advanced functionality, you are opening up your NAS to an increased risk of attack. And whilst something like the Synology NAS that I've got does have antivirus software on there, it's only as good as the last time you updated it on the NAS. And it is, as I say, it is just another computer, and it is just as susceptible in that way. So really think what you're doing when you're going to connect one of these things up to your home network. But overall, a NAS device can be a great addition to your home network. Certainly if you've got a busy household, you can have lots of increased capacity, sharing of your media files, the ability to access stuff remotely and things like that. As long as you take all the precautions into account, and you can justify the cost of having a NAS unit within your setup, then it can be a real benefit. And you'll wonder why you put up with that external hard drive for so long, really, when something that is relatively low power just sits in the corner, and it just makes everyday life for accessing that kind of content so much easier for everyone. So there you go. Those are my pros and cons of having a NAS unit as a home user. If you've got a NAS unit, and you can think of more pros and cons, drop them down below in the comments for everybody else to see. But if you've enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.